Happy Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. It is March 18th, and it is going to be another great day. I hope that you all have enjoyed watching the videos that I've been doing, and I hope that you all have enjoyed your checklist that you started yesterday. You've got another checklist today. Today's a little bit different. I've seen some of your work that your parents have sent or that you've done on Google Classroom, and it is awesome. So I'm so proud of you for working from home, because I know it's a little bit hard to work at home than it is working at school. But I'm proud of you for doing your work, and I'm proud of you for listening to the videos and enjoying just our story time together, because this is my favorite part of the day. Since we're not in school, being able to read to you and know that you are listening to me read. So I don't have Yossi with me today. He got scared of something upstairs and he ran downstairs. So we'll see if he decides to join us in a little bit. The story that we're going to read today is one of my most favorite stories. It's called The Relatives Came. This story is written by my all-time favorite children's author. Her name is Cynthia Rylant. And this year we've read several stories by Cynthia Rylant. One of the stories that we've read by her was our Scarecrow book that we read back in October. So she is the author of this story, and our illustrator is Stephen Gamble. This book was a Caldecott Honor book, and remember we talked about how sometimes there's the Caldecott winner, which gets the gold medal, and then the Caldecott Honor book. And so this is an honor book, which means it did not win the prize, but it was one of the top choices for the prize of best children's books. And let's see when this book was written. It was written in 1985, which means that this book is 35 years old. So I'm excited to read this story to you, but before I read this story to you, I want to kind of tell you what it's about. This story is about a group of relatives. Relatives means family members, so it means your family members like your grandparents or your cousins, your aunt, uncles, usually people that don't live with you but live somewhere else. It could be next door, it could be down the street, or it could be in an entire different state. So these relatives come and visit a family, and they spend all summer together doing different activities and having fun together, and then when the summer's over, the relatives have to go back to their home in Virginia. So before we started, I'm going to tell you about my family, because they're very special to me. So I drew us a little bit, drew us a little picture for today. I said Miss Wolfe's family. So in my family, of course, there's me, and I put my name in green because go greenhouse. There's me and Mr. Wolfe, and so I live with Mr. Wolfe. That's my husband. That's who I'm married to. And then I've got my mom, Miss Julie, who you've met before. I've got my dad, Mr. Tim, who you've not met Mr. Tim. And then I've got my sister, Emily, and you've met Emily before. Also, some of my relatives are my grandmother. We call her France. And then I've got another grandmother named Nana, and my grandfather, who I call Granddaddy. And so these are my closest family members. Now I also have aunts, uncles, and cousins, but I didn't put them on this sheet because this is who I'm closest with. And then of course I put my dogs on there, Yossi, and then Sabin and Cooper, which are my mom and my sister's dog. And then I drew a picture of us down at the bottom. So that's me and Mr. Wolfe, my dad, my mom, and my sister, France, Granddaddy, and Nana. So after I read this story, for your activity this afternoon, I want you to tell me about your family. Tell me who's in your family. Tell me who some of your relatives are. And tell me what kinds of things you like to do. So let's go ahead and get started with our story today. And as I read the story, I'm going to ask some questions. And as I'm asking questions, I want you to talk about the answer to one of your family members at home. It could be a brother, sister, aunt, uncle, cousin, any of your relatives. It was the summer of the year when the relatives came. They came up from Virginia. They left when their grapes were nearly purple enough to pick, but not quite. They had an old station wagon that smelled like a real car, and in it they put an ice chest full of soda pop and some boxes of crackers and some bologna sandwiches, and they came up from Virginia. They left at 4 in the morning when it was still dark, before even the birds were awake. So right now I want you to make a prediction. Where do you think the relatives are going? Tell one of your family members. They drove all day long and into the night. And while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and the different mountains, and they thought about their almost purple grapes back home. They thought about Virginia, but they thought about us too, waiting for them. So they drank up all their soda pop and ate up all their crackers and traveled all of those miles until finally they pulled up into our yard. Then it was hugging time. Talk about hugging. Those relatives just passed us around their car, pulling us against their wrinkled Virginia clothes and even crying sometimes. They hugged us for hours. I want you to talk to one of your family members. Why do you think the relatives were hugging each other for so long? Can you make any text, remember how we do that, text to self connections? With this page, I can think of a connection I make. When I see my relatives that I have not seen in a long time, I hug them for a long time. And I give them a big giant squeeze. Then it was into the house and so much laughing and shining faces and hugging in the doorways. You'd have to go through at least 4 different hugs to get from the kitchen to the front room. Those relatives. And finally, after a big supper 2 or 3 times around until we all got a turn at the table, there was quiet talk and we were all in 2s and 3s throughout the house. Tell your family members, what is supper and how do you know what it is? The relatives weren't particular about beds, which was good since there weren't any extras. So a few of us squeezed in and the rest slept on the floor, some with their arms thrown over the closest person, or some with an arm across one person and a leg across another. It was different going to sleep with all of that new breathing in the house. Look at all those relatives crammed together sleeping. The relatives stayed for weeks and weeks. They helped us tend the garden and they fixed any broken things they could find. They ate up all of our strawberries and melons, and they promised we could eat up all of their grapes and peaches when we came to Virginia. Looks like they might like to play music together. But none of us thought about Virginia much. We were so busy hugging and eating and breathing together. I want you to tell your family members at home, in this story, what are the things these family members and relatives enjoyed doing together? What did they like to do? And then talk about what kinds of things you like to do with your family. Finally, after a long time, the relatives loaded up their ice chest and headed back to Virginia at 4 in the morning. We stood there in our pajamas and waved them off in the dark. We watched the relatives disappear down the road. Then we crawled back into our beds that felt too big and too quiet, and we fell asleep. And the relatives drove on all day and into the night. And while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses in different mountains, and they thought about their dark purple grapes waiting at home in Virginia. But they thought about us too, missing them, and they missed us. So I want you to make an inference right here. Why do you think the relatives stayed the whole summer at their house? And why do they already miss each other? And when they were finally home in Virginia, they crawled into their silent, soft beds and dreamed about the next summer. I wonder what's going to happen the very next summer. And there's a picture of grapes on the last page. So like I said, this is one of my most favorite stories because it makes me think about all the good times that I have when my family gets together. Now, there's not many of us in my family. I don't have a very big family, but even though we don't have a big family, just a few of us enjoy getting together and spending time and laughing and hugging and playing games and blowing bubbles and doing all that kind of stuff. So what I want you to do for your writing today, I want you to tell me about the things that you like to do with your family, or you can write about a trip that you've taken with your family. So it might be something like a trip to the grocery store, or it could be a trip to a beach or a Dollywood or a new city or state, or it could even just be a trip to a family member's house. So you have two choices to write about. You can write about your most favorite thing that you like to do with your family, or you can write about a trip that you've taken with your relatives or your family members before. I can't wait to read your writing, and like I said, if you want to, you can do it on the Google Classroom where you can type it, or you can write it out and have your parents send me a picture of it. I hope you enjoyed the story today. I'm excited to read another story to you tomorrow, and like I said, this is my most favorite part of the day, even though we don't get to see each other. Just getting to read a story to you and know that you're listening to me makes my heart so happy. So I hope that you have a great Wednesday. Even though it's raining outside, you can still learn inside. So I hope that you have a great Wednesday and enjoy learning, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye.